I feel like I've aged 10 years since being postpartum, and I don't know if it's just the reality of I am getting older versus like the self-care slacking, or if I'm just like old and it's just hit me like a ton of bricks. Is this what having a baby does to you? But I wanted to talk all things postpartum today, my postpartum experience, but mostly like my postpartum body changes. So we're gonna go over 10 body changes that I have noticed being postpartum. We could do a whole nother video on the mental space, but I feel like being postpartum, I just had no idea what to expect in terms of my body and what would happen to it and all the changes it would go through. And without trying to sound too superficial, I was concerned of how my body would look after having a baby. Obviously things change. I didn't put any pressure on myself or do anything different in terms of like trying to bounce back. I was not feeding into all of that. My biggest thing is before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, I just wanted to be consistent for my health, for it's so good for me mentally. And I think just being somewhat consistent does help. First things first with skin, because my skin had never been so bad except when I was like first going through puberty than it was while I was pregnant. All kinds of strange things were happening that had never happened to my skin before. Yes, I have freckles, but I started getting moles, and specifically red moles, everywhere. I honestly started to like freak out because I had one really large one that I actually had to get removed, and it still is very, very noticeable and I hate it, but it's like my little pregnancy scar at this point. And it does look better than a large red mole on my chest. It was just very obvious, and like shirts and anything I wore, it was just like there. I couldn't stop staring at it. And then I was getting smaller ones and I was like, oh no, don't tell me I'm gonna have to get like all of these removed. They were specifically like all over my chest. I was getting red bumps everywhere, which thankfully they all went away with the exception of the one that was so large I had to get removed. But now that I'm weaning and my hormones are changing again, I'm actually finding that they're coming back. So I hope they also disappear again. I also started getting skin tags, which I have never had in my life, and especially again on my chest area, and I would pick those off. I would just scratch them off. Probably, I don't know if they would have went away. I scratched them off, and now postpartum, none have come back, thank goodness. I was very, very self-conscious about my skin during pregnancy. So my skin got better, my hair got way, way, way worse. I thought I skipped the postpartum hair loss phase, and let me tell you, I did not. It was about the 4-month mark and I was like, oh, I haven't really had any hair loss or shedding. And let me tell you, it hit like a freight train. It was falling out in clumps. I'm even still taking my vitamins and prenatals, and I heard that if you like abruptly stop your vitamins, that could happen. You could see here my hairline became pretty much translucent. I was hopeful, like I was like, okay, you know, it's postpartum hair loss, it's gonna fall out, it's gonna come back, hopefully, and that does seem to be the case. I could definitely tell it's regrowing now, but holy cow, I've always seen people posting about this and how crazy it is, but it is actually insane how your hair grows back in. And if I don't use even with hairspray, I have like alfalfa sprouts everywhere. Just like me going like this, you could just see like a lot of those baby hairs, but they're all over. So I did take this picture in like October, and then I took this one in December, and you could clearly see it is growing back and it is coming back in all those spots. And then I took this one recently and it's better. But overall, my hair does feel very thin. Another substantial thing I experienced was, I believe you pronounce it linea negra, and it is that dark line that goes down your stomach. Now, I didn't get this in pregnancy until like the very, very end. Like I would say around maybe month 8, it was a little bit noticeable, but like when I was pushing almost like 10 months, because I did go over 41 weeks, it was pretty dark by the end, and I almost thought I escaped it. I did not, I got it. And this was something I thought would go away pretty immediately, and it did not. Like it stuck around, it's still sticking around. It took months and months and months to even lighten. And now Liam just turned 9 months and I still have a faint line. We'll see if it picks up on camera, but this is what it currently looks like. And I could tell it's there. I'm not sure that it's like super noticeable, but I was very shocked that this has stuck around so long, and it was pretty dark for quite some time. Okay, let's talk about boob changes. I know this is a big one, no pun intended, because they got very big. During pregnancy, breastfeeding, I went from like a 32B to about a 32D, which surprisingly I did not love. I had to buy new bras, of course. It was an adjustment because like none of my clothes fit properly how they should for quite some time, especially until my supply regulated. And with breastfeeding and everything, of course, there was like a long period of time that they were leaking. That probably lasted until like the 5 or 6 month mark. I didn't realize that would go on for so long, but it did, the joys of pregnancy. So I've been breastfeeding for over 8 months, and what I've read everywhere is that they don't necessarily change from breastfeeding. It's more so the weight fluctuation of being pregnant, breastfeeding, you know, going back. And so even people who don't breastfeed, you could still get stretch marks, you could still get that loose, saggy skin. So my goal for like a lot of things was not to gain like a dramatic amount of weight. I really wanted to stay into like the recommended like 25 to 35 pounds of weight gain, but I did gain like 30 pounds. So it wasn't like a huge weight fluctuation. So I feel like that helped. My skin there is definitely softer now. Fortunately, did not get any stretch marks, but things are a little bit different. And I've read that over time, you start to get fat back in that area, you build the muscle back, and then they won't be like as deflated. So time will tell, but I wouldn't say they're like substantially different at this point. Now, during pregnancy and breastfeeding, things were definitely looking different, but like I said, like everything kind of went back to normal afterwards. So let's work down the body to butt and waist, because I'm someone who has always carried my weight in my lower half of my body, very pear-shaped. My butt has definitely shrunk. My hips have definitely got wider, and I'm storing like fat differently on my hips as well. There's just like these like pockets of fat on the side. I am the same weight as I was pre-pregnancy. It's just odd and different and just distributed completely different. Understandably so, and I'm sure over time and just exercise it will go back, but it's definitely like changed my proportions a little bit. So I was very worried about my skin texture overall, especially my stomach area, because it gets very large and then shrinks back up, and it is amazing what your body can do. But that being said, I was very worried about my skin texture and would I have all this leftover loose skin on my stomach. I know it happens to so many people, and I was just like, what is my skin gonna look like once it goes back to normal? And I am very happy to say that with one pregnancy, fingers crossed, it has been good. Now, subsequent pregnancies and the more your skin stretches back and forth, I don't know that I will be so lucky. But right now, it does more or less feel like my skin, my same texture, no extra like thin skin. I didn't get any stretch marks, which definitely could be genetics. Like I moisturized, but nothing insane, or I didn't do anything crazy. Okay, something very weird postpartum that I was not expecting was my eye twitches like insanely, especially early on, probably like the first 6 months with lack of sleep and stress. This eye would just twitch all day long, and it's very like uncomfortable. My eyes have changed so much. My eyes have been extremely dry. I had LASIK years ago. I feel like I might need to get glasses again. We'll see once my hormones regulate, but my vision has gotten very bad. They were fine during pregnancy, but they have just like, I have like double vision, extremely, extremely dry eyes, and I was not expecting any of that. And much to my disappointment, I did have a C-section. I really did not want one for the sole fact of I did not want the recovery from a C-section and the potential risk of future C-sections. I see nothing wrong with C-sections. It was like the easiest part of my whole labor, to be honest, but I did have one, and now let's talk about the scar. So being so far postpartum now, half the scar, it's getting very faint. Half of it, I can't really feel it at all. The other side does have harder scar tissue. I do need to be way better about massaging it because I am very squeamish about it. I'm trying to desensitize it, but it's not great. And there's definitely a sore sensation when it's pressed against still. I wouldn't say that it hurts by any means, but it's definitely like noticeable. I am still very conscious of it pretty much all the time. There is a feeling there, which I hate. It's the only thing that I do not like about it, and part of the reason I did not want one in the first place. Along that same note, everyone talks about the C-section shelf, which is definitely a thing. It's kind of like where your skin and the incision meets, and it kind of like overhangs a little bit over, not even overhangs, but just like protrudes out further than that incision, because there is incisions on the inside and on the outside. But this is still a noticeable thing on me, especially after exercise or exerting myself or lifting too much. It does get more swollen, and I could definitely tell there's like a bump and then my incision. So it's not like perfectly smooth, which I'm sure will get better over time. And again, I need to be better at massaging, but it's there. Another common myth that with a C-section, you might not have pelvic floor issues, but you do carry all that pressure on your pelvic floor during pregnancy. And I was laboring for so long. I labored for about like 52 hours. I pushed for a couple hours, and I could still tell in my pelvic floor, it's like better, but it's not very strong. I ran the farthest I've run since before being pregnant the other day, about 3 miles. And afterwards, I felt like my uterus was gonna fall out. It was very, very sore, and I was really hoping I didn't hurt myself. It was just sore. It went away like the next day, but it's definitely something I'm still working on recovering. And I definitely, it doesn't like hurt, so I don't focus on it as much, but I should really focus on trying to re-engage those muscles again, because just even with pregnancy, despite labor, it's definitely like something that needs to be rebuilt. But now a good thing about being postpartum, a lot of my pregnancy symptoms are completely gone. I had very bad heartburn that went away almost like immediately. It didn't go away during labor, but after labor it did. And then shortness of breath, like all of that immediately goes away. You could breathe better, I could sleep better, like everything felt better than it did while I was like very, very pregnant. So that has kind of been all of my body changes I have experienced this far postpartum. I feel like I am getting out of it. I'm finally starting to feel like pretty much back to normal, not quite completely there, but I would say like 90% back to my normal self. It is really truly amazing though, like everything your body can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed my experience. Maybe some things you could be on the lookout for. They won't necessarily, of course, happen to you, but just things to be mindful of, because some of these definitely took me by surprise. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon. Bye.